Hey guys, Evans here. Super excited to experiment with this going live from my desktop, and I just want to talk about interval training. I know I shot a video a couple days ago, and my hope was that it was really informative, but the reality was hard to see me and hear me clearly. So just wanted to reshoot it because it adds a lot of value. Many of us, we set fitness goals in the beginning of the new year, and some of us have, reached those goals or are on track for those goals. But all the studies say that most of us have fell off of our goals. So, one of the things that we can do to help increase our overall fitness, and we say fitness or health, just to be clear, we always talking about three things, at least when I talk about it. One is to be disease-free. So we want to minimize the disease in our body, specifically chronic disease. So diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. There are those with what we call hyperlipidemia. How you doing, Len? Or familial hyperlipidemia means you have a family history of high cholesterol. So even with good exercise and nutritional habits, your cholesterol levels will be a little bit elevated, but we still want to keep those at bay as much as possible. And then, so we want to decrease disease. The second thing is have the body composition that we want. So, for ladies, you may say things like, oh, I want to be more toned. And for guys, you might like, oh, I want to lose the belly fat, or anybody wants to lose belly fat today. But, fit a certain size or certain dress, how you doing, Nate? That's the idea of body composition. And the third part of fitness or optimal health is having the performance goals that we desire. So we use the FitRank system because it makes it really easy for us to gauge, are we fit comparative to our age and our gender to do that. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about fitness. So some of the things we know is that 1 out of 3 Americans today die from cardiovascular disease. That means that we're dying from, a disease linked to our heart and respiratory systems. So, we have strokes and heart attacks and arrhythmias and all kinds of things that causes our health to degrade. And, so heart health is really important in there. And a way to increase your cardiovascular strength as well as cut fat is interval training or cardio training. Many times people just go on the treadmill, they just walk consistently, but the goal is to do other things to. So, one of those is HIIT. So what is HIIT training? Really quick, HIIT training stands for high intensity interval training. That means you're doing a certain exercise for a bout or a measure of time, and then you rest for a measure of time, and then you go again real hard for a period of time, and you rest. And the reason why this training is very effective is because it keeps your body in what we call the anaerobic zone of exercise. So for those, who took an anatomy class, they say energy begins at the cells, and the first 10 seconds you burn ATP, which is energy, and then 10 to about 2 minutes, you burn glucose. Your body uses stored sugars as a way to get their energy up. And oh, Kim, while eating pound cake, that's awesome. And then after the 2-minute mark, you're in the fat burning zone. Well, the fat burning zone means that in that exercise period of time, you're predominantly using fat as the fuel source to exercise. And though that may sound really good, so people go for nice long walks consistently, when you're looking to change your body's mechanisms, that may not be the most effective way to keep fat off your body. You burn a lot of fat during the exercise, but your body stores fat for the exercise. So just so everybody's clear before we dive real big into interval training, we went to Florida for some training recently, and when we got there, we had to take a highway. Well, we didn't know that there's a toll needed, so we're digging through our pockets and we're finding coins to put in the machine. Well, the next time, as soon as we got off the exit, we cashed, because it didn't take dollars. We had to break down our dollars into coins so we can get on the highway again without, penalty. Well, your body does the same thing. If it realizes that you're burning a lot of fat during the exercise, it tries to store fat for the exercise. And that's the reason why if you look at a sprinter is typically leaner or has less fat on its body and more muscle than a long distance runner. They're normally like skinny. So even though both of them are fit and most of them are fitter than all of us, they're still the sprinter still has a lower body fat percentage than the long distance runner, and typically has more muscle, than the long distance runner. So HIIT training, one of the things it does, which is really cool, so that's HIIT, on and off, on and off, on and off at a certain level of intensity. Ideally, you're hitting at least 90% of your max heart rate. So, so one of the benefits of HIIT training, it does something called increase your blood glucose uptake. Basically, it allows your body to absorb the sugar out of your blood at a faster pace. This is great if you're diabetic or you have problems with metabolizing sugar. For a man, that means your waist measurement around your belly button is about 37 inches or greater. And for a woman, probably with 33 inches or greater. That means that there's probably some insulin resistance going on. So HIIT training is a great tool to, drive your blood sugars down and get them into your muscles. And that's where you want them in your muscles. So that's one benefit. It increases something called your VO2 max. And VO2 max has to do with the amount of exercise that you can, oxygen you can absorb or inhale or intake during a bout of exercise. So they measure it based on liters per minute that you can do. And the higher someone's VO2 max, the longer they can train at high levels of intensity. So that's the goal, is to be able to have the endurance to do the things you want to do. And we can measure that by VO2 max. And HIIT training helps with that, which is really, really cool. So if you do want to run a 5K or half a marathon while you're doing your steady state training, you can also do HIIT training to help you get your wind up. Another cool thing is that it increases fat loss. So I was just looking at this study done in 2012, and they showed that there was a 300% increase in fat metabolism with people that did HIIT training over the course of 12 weeks versus the individuals that just did steady state cardio at about 60% of their max heart rate. So the people who went from 75 to 90% burned 3 times more fat than the people who stayed at 60%. And they trained for less amount of time, which is really awesome. Also doubles your cardiovascular fitness, which is really cool. So lots and lots of benefit. One of the cool benefits as well is that HIIT training allows your metabolism to stay high for up to 72 hours, some papers show, and that these athletes, their metabolism was higher for up to 72 hours. Basically, you work out for a period of time, and after you work out, your metabolism is still up. So it's really, really cool, some of the benefits that HIIT training has in it. What I want to do now is just talk about when do you do it, how often do you do it, and those kind of things. So ideally, if someone's looking to cut fat, not everybody is, but if you are looking to use it for a purpose of cutting fat, then initially 3 times a week is a good start. So you're training for 3 times a week, you're doing the HIIT training, and you can do it alongside of resistance training as well, but 3 times a week you're doing it. Now, how do you do this? I'm going to try something. I'm going to flip this over and see if you guys can still see me on my whiteboard. So, yeah, it looks like you can see the whiteboard. So I'll try to draw or bring this in a little closer. There we go. To show you how you do this calculation. So if this is here, I'm just trying to move it up so you can see it perfect. So how you do it initially is you start with a warm-up. So warming up is really, really important. And you warm up for about 5 minutes. So I know you can barely see that, but you're warming up for 5 minutes is your warm-up time. And this will allow your heart to go through a steady increase. So depending on your cardiovascular strength, some people can go on and just go for it, but that's not recommended. And even me at my level of fitness, I still do a warm-up, maybe 3-minute warm-up, but I still want to warm up. So that's the first thing. And how do you warm up? I'm going to show you how to do it on a treadmill, and then I'll just give you another variable outside of a treadmill, elliptical, or something like that. So 3 to 5 minute warm up, and I do write upwards because I'm happy. That's what they say. People who write up are happy. So there we go. But you walk for 5 minutes, and at the end of the 5 minutes now, your heart rate should be somewhere around 50% of your max heart rate. And then the second period of time, you start maybe jogging, if you can jog, until you get to the bottom of your interval range. So for me, I may jog for, so I jog for maybe 3 minutes here to kind of get your heart rate a little bit more elevated. And then you sprint. So step 3, we start sprinting, and we want to sprint to the top of our range that we're working with. For most of us, it's going to be somewhere between 85 to 95% of max heart rate. And then we walk or jump off. If we're on the treadmill, you just jump off to the sides. If you're in the elliptical, you just do slower pedals. So we rest until our heart rate comes back down to either 65 to 75, depending on your interval range. And you'll repeat this cycle for 5 more times. So you're doing 6 cycles of sprinting and walking, sprinting and walking. You do that 6 times, and then at the end of it, so that was repeat was step 5. Step 6 is you cool down until your heart rate gets to like 120, 130, somewhere like that. Somewhere is manageable that you can handle on your own. The cool down is really, really important because just like you don't want a spike increase in your heart rate, you don't want to just stop. For some people, their blood pressure can drop and they can cause a cardiovascular event just stopping exercise. And that's the reason why even at our facility, we stretch our clients at the end. We're actually controlling the cool down, but also you want to ensure that your heart rate is not going from 180 to 110 super fast. You can also just get lightheaded and things like that. So we do want to control these variables. So what would this look like? How do you know what 60% looks like for you, and what does 85% look like? The way you do the math is something called the Karvonen formula. So I will try to write straight for this so you can kind of duplicate it. And I'll actually, just thought about it, I'll type it in here on the side. Beautiful thing of the desktop, so I can type it in and then I'll put it up on the wall. So you start with 220 minus your age, so minus age, minus your resting heart rate. Now, what's your resting heart rate? True resting heart rate, you take it first thing in the morning. After you wake up, you just look at a clock and you just count your pulse for anywhere from, if you do 6 seconds, you multiply it by, that's cool. If you do 6 seconds, you multiply it by 10, or if you do 15 seconds, you multiply it by 4, you do 10 seconds, you multiply it by 6. But you take a 3-day average, and then you just average those 3 numbers together, and that's your resting heart rate. So you take these numbers here, so I'm going to put parentheses around them because these create your first series of numbers, and then you multiply this number, so you multiply, so this is times your target intensity. So target intensity, and then once you've done that, you add in your resting heart rate. So I've got to put a parentheses around here as well. And then you add in your resting heart rate. So you take your resting heart rate out, and then you add back in your resting heart rate, because depending on your resting heart rate will determine what intensity looks like for you. So that's the calculation in there. You guys should see it pop up on the side. So let's say it's me, and I have a calculator this time, so life is a little bit easier. So let's say if we say for me, I'm 37 years old, my resting heart rate is 48. So I take 220 minus my age, 37, minus 48, and that gives me 135 is the number I'm working with, right? Then I take that 135, and if I want to know, hey, at the end of my walking, I should be at 50%, I say times 0.5, which is 67.5, and I plus back in that 48, so I should be around 115 when I'm, in that walk. That's where I'm trying to keep my heart rate. So if I'm walking and I'm at 130, that means I need to dial it back a little bit. I don't want to forsake my joints warming up. So a part of the warm-up, it also helps, me build synovial fluid in my joints, in my hip, and my knee, and my ankle joints, which are really important. Also, the warm-up also gets my nerves firing, so my brain and my muscles are communicating well. So really, really important that I get that warm up in. Now, when it's time for me to start jogging, I want to jog somewhere around 60%, so I take that, I think 135 was my number. And so 135 times 0.6, that'll take me to 81 plus back in my heart rate, and now I'm at 129 to 130 in my jog. Now for my interval, the cycle that I'm going to do, I'll take that 135 times, and I normally go to 95% of my max heart rate because I can handle it. You are winded as all out at 95%, so if you're new, I would recommend 65 to 85 for about 4 weeks, and then going 70 to 90. That's a good pace to be at for your cycles in there. So let's say if I did times 0.90, so at 0.95, so that's 128 plus back in 48, and I'm at 176. I probably honestly go to 90% just to be honest, but it sounds good that I said 95%. So most times I'm closer to 90 to be honest, but 176 or 171, 172, which is 90% for me, I'm gassed for air. It's hurting. I'm like, it's really, really winded at that point. So where do I back it down to? I take that 135 times 0.75, so I'm 75 to 90%. Then I add back in the 48, and I'm right about 149. So I know now my intervals that I'm working with here is from 149 to 176, or really for me, 171, but I'd like to tell you is 176. So that's the interval range that I'm working with, that I'm going back and forth for 6 times. So as soon as I get to 149, I start sprinting again, and I go back up. Now, tools you can use anywhere from a heart rate monitor like you use on a watch if you have a smartwatch, or if you use the strap with, you get the heart rate strap, it syncs right to an app on your phone, and you can do it with your phone so you can see it on your phone. Do know that there's a delay though. There's this time delay between the time that it picks up your true heart rating and what your heart rate is. And there's a couple seconds. So if you hit, let's say if it was me and I was going for 176, when I'm at 174, I'm jumping off. And while I'm off, you'll see it just keep on going up and up and up. Still, probably hit 176 anyway. But then also on the way down, once I hit under about 80% or so, my heart rate starts dropping really fast. So when I get to like 155, 154, I jump back on, and when I jump back on, it'll still show my heart rate still going down for a little bit because there's this time delay. So really important to kind of, play around with that interval. So let's say you don't have cardio equipment. What could you do to accomplish the same objective with it? Now, before we continue, I do want you to know this is not in place of resistance training, but if you're short on time, this is something you can do in 20 minutes for most of us, and you can get a great workout in. So for those people who say, man, I don't have enough time, I can't be in the gym for 45 minutes to an hour or 30 minutes to an hour, whatever, but you have 20 minutes, you can do this in 15 to 20 minutes. So what you can do is body weight exercises and as many multiple joint exercises as possible. What's a multi-joint exercise? Squatting. Now, if you're very conditioned, squatting is not going to get your heart rate up all the way. So you may have to add some dumbbells to it and do some dumbbell squats, lunges. You can do cleans, so cleans or cleans to press, overhead presses, burpees for those people who can do burpees. And if you can't do burpees, you can do something called up down. What an up down is in our place is you're just lying down, flat on the floor, touching the ground, and then standing up and touching the air. It seems really easy to do, but it'll get your heart rate up really, really good. So you can do those, you can do cleans, presses, you can do steps, so the old school stepper, you can just step up and down. For those that are able to jump, you can jump on a step and then step down, jump on a step down, and those kind of things will drive your heart rate up. What I like to do is a combo of exercises, and I'll do maybe 4 exercises in my combo in order to do it. If I have heavy enough dumbbells, I'll do deadlifts, and deadlifts can get my heart rate up. The goal, if I'm using dumbbells or a barbell to do this HIIT training, is to not be so heavy I can't move. So what I mean by that is, like you're doing a squat and your legs are like, oh, I can't squat anymore. That means the weight's too heavy. So you want to lighten the weight because you want to also go for speed. The slower you move, the slower it's going to take your heart rate to go up, and you do want your heart rate to come up fairly fast. So in your warm-up, if you're doing this without an elliptical treadmill machine of any sorts, a rowing machine is great. In your warm-up, what you're doing, even if you're doing the same exercise, you're doing squatting, you're doing overhead press, you move slower. The slower you move, the slower your heart rate goes up. But then, when it's time to play ball, then you move faster to get your heart rate up. Now, if your heart rate's going from 149 to 176 in 10 seconds, that means the weight's too heavy. So even though you can move the weight, we do want to create a load period close to 30 seconds load time to get up there. So it's too heavy. Similarly, if you get on the treadmill, talk to you later, babe. Similarly, if you get on the talk to you later, baby girl. If you get on the treadmill and your heart rate spikes up right away, then lower the speed. Things you can do is do a lower speed and a higher incline, and it'll get your heart rate up, with a pace that's really comfortable. So those are a couple techniques. Hopefully it made a little bit more sense. I'm glad I'm able to type in here so I can give you the formulas and things like that. But these are some really cool ways in order to create an environment in your body that you're burning fat like crazy. So what we're talking about is not just the exercise itself, but what happens after the exercise. Your body is burning fat like crazy. So, okay, it's a piecemeal exercise today for a sample of a 20-minute HIIT. I do 20-minute resistance in the evening or the next day. Great question. So if I'm going to combine HIIT and resistance training, I do want to do my resistance training first. So you always do your resistance training first because you want as much strength as possible you want as much energy as possible to perform the exercise. So your cardio is always going to deplete energy, just like all exercise is. But if you're lifting weights, you definitely want that weight you want to be able to push it. And if you're fatigued, you can't push it as well. So great question. So you can do one or two things. You can do your HIIT, your resistance training, and then do HIIT right away. Or you can do your resistance training, have some meals in between, and do HIIT later on. Cool deal. So I'll also keep it up for a couple more seconds, so people can ask questions as well, because that's a phenomenal question. So if you have a question, feel free to type it in, and I'll answer those questions really quick. And sometimes if you realize you're not getting some of the results that you want with using HIIT, you can just add time. So I can accomplish 6 rounds in probably 15 to 20 minutes. I can do 1 or 2 things if I'm not peeling away the way I want to, as far as peeling away, losing fat the way I'd like to. I can add a 4th day, or I can add more time. But really check with your coach before you're adding time, because it does put a stress on your body, and you don't want to do too much. You can't do too much, even though it's a short amount of training. The response that your body has is actually greater than doing a dance fitness class or lifting 5-6 days a week. So ideally, most people, it was never recommended, or rarely recommended, I should say, to do HIIT 5-6 days a week. We try to max out at 4 times a week and maybe increase the time, because we want that recovery time when you're not training. Your metabolism is a lot higher on those off days, so you do realize that you kind of lean out really nice with it. So we'll rock out for another couple seconds, see if there's any other questions in here. I'm enjoying doing this on the laptop, though, so I can type and see your questions. Can't wait to get back working out, Lynn. I can't wait to get you back as well. But this is definitely something you can do if you can sit on a bike, even with your shoulder, and you can bike it out. This is something you can do on a recumbent bike and still be able to get some of the benefits. Or doing this with lunges. For those that don't have access to a tool to measure your heart rate, then the only way you can do is time exercise. So you may say, I'm going to do this for 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. But when we've timed it for most people, even though that's a less, a less accurate and productive way, it's still better than not doing HIIT. But when we looked at a lot of people, they haven't increased their heart rate into the zone that they need to be at in those 30 seconds without a target to tell you push a little harder in there. There's also something really cool called Wingate training, and it's a way of doing HIIT as well, where once you sped up the load, you crank up the intensity as well, which is really, really cool. So cool deal. You're gonna go work out. Good deal. Enjoy your workout window. Hopefully these guys were a blessing to you guys, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.